There are moments in history when the world feels as if it is holding two realities at once. On one side, the surface appears volatile, pressure building beneath the crust, systems shifting, emotions rising, the atmosphere charged with something difficult to name. On the other side, there is a strange and quiet stillness emerging in people who are paying attention. It is a paradox that has always existed in nature. The same planet that carries tectonic upheaval also holds forests that breathe in silence. Storms gather, oceans churn, magnetic fields fluctuate, and yet somewhere inside the turbulence, there is always a center that remains unmoved. Right now, many people are beginning to notice that this paradox is not only happening around us, it is happening within us. While the external world grows louder and more unpredictable, something inside the human system is becoming clearer. Old reactions are falling away. Certain relationships or beliefs no longer fit the way they once did. A quiet awareness begins to take root beneath the noise. This is what transformation often looks like from the inside. Not a dramatic moment of change, but the gradual recognition that two states are coexisting at once. Instability on the surface, and a deeper layer of stillness forming beneath it. And the more closely we look at the rhythms of the Earth itself, its electromagnetic pulses, its cycles of tension and release, the more this mirror becomes impossible to ignore. What if the planet and the human nervous system are not separate stories? What if the same forces that move through the Earth's magnetic field are also shaping the way awareness unfolds within us? If this paradox is real, the next question naturally follows. Why does it feel as though time itself has begun to move differently? Many people describe the same strange sensation. Days pass quickly, yet certain moments feel unusually dense. Events that once unfolded slowly now seem to arrive in clusters, as if cycles that were once spread across years are suddenly compressing into shorter spans of time. Nature has always moved in cycles. Seasons rotate, solar activity rises and falls. The Earth's magnetic field pulses in patterns that scientists can measure, but are still working to fully understand. These rhythms are not random. They are part of a system that continually moves between tension and release. The hourglass is an ancient symbol of this process. Sand falls grain by grain, almost imperceptibly, until a moment arrives when the chamber empties and the entire cycle resets. What appears slow from a distance is actually a constant movement toward transformation. Right now, many people sense that humanity may be standing inside one of those turning points. The feeling that time is accelerating may not mean that time itself has changed, but that we have reached a moment where accumulated pressures, social, environmental, and psychological, are converging. When enough pressure gathers in a system, change no longer moves gradually. It begins to move in waves. And just like the sand in an hourglass, once the turning point arrives, the direction of the flow shifts. When systems approach a turning point, they rarely move smoothly from one state into another. Instead, they pass through a period where two realities seem to exist at the same time. One part of the system holds the familiar structure, the patterns, institutions, and beliefs that have defined stability for a long time. Another part begins to behave differently. Cracks appear in places that once felt solid. Old explanations no longer seem to account for what people are experiencing. This is the stage where contradiction becomes visible. The Earth itself often behaves this way. Tectonic plates can remain locked together for decades, storing enormous pressure beneath the surface. To an outside observer, everything appears stable. Yet deep below, forces are building that will eventually reshape the landscape. Human systems are not so different. Cultural structures, political orders, and even personal identities can appear steady long after the pressures beneath them have begun to change. That is why moments of transformation often feel confusing rather than clear. We are witnessing two states at once, the old system still functioning and the new one beginning to emerge. The result is a strange sense of duality, stability and instability, certainty and doubt, collapse and renewal moving through the same moment in time. And when that duality becomes visible, it signals that the cycle is moving closer to its turning point. Every cycle eventually reaches a moment where pressure can no longer remain contained. What once appeared stable begins to reorganize, and the system crosses a threshold into a new phase. In nature, this moment is rarely dramatic at first. Ice begins to melt one drop at a time before the river breaks free. Magnetic fields shift subtly before instruments register a larger change. The transition often begins quietly, almost invisibly, long before it becomes obvious to everyone. Thresholds work this way because transformation is not a single event. It is a process. Forces accumulate slowly until a point is reached where the old configuration can no longer hold. When that threshold arrives, movement begins. Patterns reorganize. New pathways open. What once felt locked into place begins to loosen. The system starts exploring different possibilities. For the human experience, these threshold moments can feel like sudden clarity. People describe recognizing truths they once avoided, stepping away from patterns that had held them for years, or sensing that something fundamental has shifted in how they see the world. The change is not always comfortable, but it carries a strange sense of inevitability, as if a door that had been closed for a long time has finally opened, and there is no longer any reason to pretend it is still shut. Thresholds mark the moment when transformation moves from possibility into motion. When a system passes through a threshold, the next phase is not expansion, it is integration. In nature, transformation does not move only upward or outward. It moves downward, into the foundations that support life. A tree does not grow stronger by reaching higher into the sky alone. Its real strength comes from the network of roots that extend silently beneath the soil. Those roots anchor the tree during storms. They absorb nutrients from the surrounding earth. They connect the organism to a larger living system that most observers never see. Human transformation works in a similar way. When perception shifts or old patterns begin to dissolve, the change cannot remain at the level of ideas. It must move deeper, into the nervous system, into daily behavior, into the ways people relate to one another and to the environment around them. This stage is quieter than the threshold that preceded it. The dramatic sense of breakthrough settles into something more stable. New awareness becomes part of ordinary life rather than an extraordinary moment. Just as the tree's roots strengthen the entire organism, Integration allows transformation to become sustainable. Without roots, growth collapses. With roots, change becomes part of a living structure that can endure. And this is where personal transformation and planetary systems begin to mirror one another most clearly. Both require grounding before renewal can fully take shape. After pressure, threshold, and integration, something else becomes visible. The transformation that once felt personal begins to reveal a wider context. What people first experience as individual change often turns out to be part of a much larger pattern unfolding across the planet. Human beings have always lived inside systems far greater than themselves. Atmospheric cycles, magnetic fields, ecological networks, and planetary rhythms that move whether we notice them or not. Most of the time, these forces remain in the background of daily life. But during periods of transformation, the connection becomes easier to see. Moments of personal clarity begin to mirror shifts happening in the world around us. Social systems reorganize. Old structures lose their certainty. New ways of thinking begin to take shape in places where they once seemed impossible. It can feel as though humanity is standing at the meeting point between two scales of reality, the individual and the planetary. The mountain represents the stability of the Earth itself. The reaching hand represents human awareness, searching for meaning in the midst of change. When the two meet, something important becomes clear. We are not separate from the systems that shape our experience. The same forces that move through the Earth's cycles also move through the human story. Pressure building, thresholds opening, roots strengthening, awareness expanding. Transformation is not happening only to the planet, and it is not happening only within individuals. It is happening across the entire system at once. And recognizing that connection may be the most important step in learning how to move forward with clarity, resilience, and a deeper sense of belonging to the living world that surrounds us. Transformation is not happening only to the planet, and it is not happening only within individuals. It is happening across the entire system at once. And recognizing that connection may be the most important step in learning how to move forward with clarity, resilience, and a deeper sense of belonging to the living world that surrounds us. Because when we begin to see the patterns clearly, the moment we are living through starts to look different. Not simply like disruption, but like the early stages of a new cycle beginning to take shape.